On this episode of Bite Sized, we are watching and discussing the second scene of the movie Twilight. For those of you watching along at home, that is from 1 minute and 8 seconds to 2 minutes and 6 seconds. And now, on to the episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Bite Size, the second episode to be exact. Thank you again for joining me. My name is Ben Abair. I am your host, comedian, somewhat influential figure in the Twilight space, or at least I have been told. If this is your first episode, here's what's going on. Every week, myself and a guest are watching and discussing the Twilight movies one scene at a time. For me, I know what else is going on. For my guests, it is completely devoid of context, unless they have any experience with the franchise in the past. Speaking of guests, I have one today with me, a comedian, a writer, a friend of the pod, Will Nicholson.
Hello.
Welcome to Bite Size.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for being here. Will, I'm going to start off this interview the way I start all interviews on this show, and by that I mean the last one, because this is the second time, and that is by asking you a question. What is your experience with the Twilight franchise?
All right, great. So I have read all of the books. I read them not quite as they were coming out. I really wasn't on the bandwagon until around the time the fourth book, Breaking Dawn, was coming out.
How old would you have been around then?
Oh, I was in middle school. I would have been right around 13, 14. Right?
A young adult.
Yes.
Yeah.
A YA, if you will.
Sure.
Really the niche market for these books.
Yeah.
And so like by the time I got into middle school, people were had been reading them for a while. The first three books were out, and people were talking about how great it was and how much they enjoyed reading it. So I started reading them, and I really enjoyed them as well. I tended to read a lot of like romance books at the time. In my middle school days, burgeoning on puberty, I was becoming a hopeless romantic.
Already,
I know. I blame John Green and Twilight. No.
Interesting.
So I read all of the books. I went to like the midnight release for Breaking Dawn, the fourth book. And I have seen the first two movies kind of like as they were coming out.
Okay.
But by the time the movies were coming out, I was entering into my late teens where it wasn't cool anymore to be a guy that like was into Twilight or that watched Twilight.
That was one thing I wanted to talk to you about when I learned about your experience. I'll ask this question. I'll preface it with a story. I'll tell you about the very first time I learned about this thing called Twilight. I was maybe 13, 14 years old, and at church there was this couple of older teenagers, high school age. To me, they seemed like adults at the time, and they were just your typical sort of like MySpace emo kids. Very, very hot topic. You know what I mean? And one day they come into church wearing matching shirts that had a list. It said the top 10 reason guys should read Twilight.
Oh.
I don't know why you would wear that to church along with someone.
I love it.
That's not what this is about, though, because Twilight was introduced to me by Twilight fans as something that you might say is for girls.
Right.
So what was your experience like being not a girl in that sort of for girls space?
I mean, I think young Will absolutely was like, oh, you girls talking about Twilight? Yeah, are you an Edward or Jacob fan? And so they're like, oh, wait, you know what you're talking about? I was like, yeah, no big deal. My middle name is also Edward, so I really milked that a lot in middle school. I was like, my name's Edward, and my teeth are kind of pointy sometimes, and I'm really pale, and that's hot now, being pale, and it didn't go well for me. It really didn't work out as well as you might.
Strategy
as
didn't
shocking
work.
as it seems, it didn't really work. But I remembered I had a fun time with it. But I think one of the things that really made it feel more accessible to me as a guy is that my sixth grade English teacher was a fan of the series and saw how popular it was and was like, great, I'm an English teacher. I'm going to capitalize on this.
I want kids to read.
And so like would talk about it a lot in class. We had a day where we went through and we made our own, like, the movie was coming out, and so she went through and, like, looked at the cast announcements, and we looked at everyone who was cast, and we were like, oh, what do you think about this person? Or who would you cast instead? And then she had us go through, and we made our own, like, playlists. Like if we were gonna make a movie soundtrack for the first movie, she had us go through and make our own playlist and submit it for extra credit.
You got to tell me some of the songs that you put on that playlist.
I think the most iconic one that I'm like, to a T is so good for the movie is Hero/Heroine by Boys Like Girls. It's just a classic, like angsty pop punk. Like I think How to Save a Life by The Fray was another one. That I think just like really anything that's got that angst, that like emo, that like no one could love me, I'm irredeemable, except for that perfect person that's out there for me.
I think putting How to Save a Life on that soundtrack may have been a little too heavy-handed even for Twilight.
Yeah, a little too on the nose.
That's a little ham-fisted, yeah.
Hey, fair enough, but I was in 6th grade, and I didn't have time for nuance. I needed my angst mainlined right through my ears into my heart so that I could tell myself that one day I was going to be a vampire for some girl out there.
Hey, bud, one day.
One day.
You'll
one
get
day.
there.
I
Keep
still got,
alive.
1,500 years or so before that dream dies. So
okay, yeah, that's a great way to look at that.
Yeah, right.
What a wonderful attitude to have an approach towards life is just assume that you'll never die.
Yeah, well, one of these days I'm going to get bitten by somebody and they're going to pass along some sort of mutation that will make me immortal.
Ideally, that person will give you a mutation and not just like an infection or something.
Well, I'll take my risk.
All right, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, I guess. Let's jump into the scene. We watched less than a minute, I think, 108 through 206. That's 58 seconds of the movie Twilight.
And truly, like a masterpiece.
Tell me about that, then.
Of the scenes, when you're breaking it down, just you need to convey to your audience quickly that this girl is from Phoenix, Arizona. And how do you do that? You have her wistfully hold a cactus.
Just to quickly recap for those of you who are not watching along with the show, it is strictly Arizona. We start with Bella digging up a cactus. We get a southwest plane flying over some mesas.
It was her digging up a cactus. No, she's holding an already potted cactus that they absolutely bought at a Hobby Lobby not 30 minutes before they shot this scene.
Then what was the spade she was holding for?
Oh, that clean spade with no dirt on it? Oh, a lovely little piece of set dressing. I think that's what my favorite thing about the shot is.
Are you implying that they didn't actually have Kristen Stewart go out in the desert and dig up a cactus?
Look, would you want to watch 3 to 4 seconds of an actress doing something with her hands, a little bit of busy work, the business, as they call it in a movie? Or would you rather see that same actress close her eyes and breathe deeply for 3 to 4 seconds while holding a potted cactus?
Just kind of bite her lip, as she will thousands of other times.
She looks like it is her favorite food is cacti, and she's never going to be able to eat it again once she leaves Arizona.
That is an interesting take.
One for the road.
I would miss Phoenix. I'd miss the heat. I would miss my loving, erratic, harebrained mother. And her new husband.
Guys, come on, I love you both. We got a plane to catch.
Do you think she had any trouble getting that cactus on a plane?
Yeah, I think
Right.
you would. I don't know that there's any way you go through TSA with a cactus that they don't go, no.
Given some of the other things TSA has taken from me, like some Axe deodorant when I was in high school, or a jar of Nutella once, I think they would absolutely take a cactus, right?
A cactus fits the 2 main criteria for something being taken by TSA. It's not a weapon, but could understandably be used as one, and is sharp enough that it could be used as a weapon.
And given how cacti retain liquid, there's probably more than 3 ounces of water in there.
That's a great point, Ben.
Yeah.
She absolutely had to wait an extra 2 hours for TSA to go through her bag. And
yeah, someone had to get called over and she had to be like, look, I'm moving. It's a whole thing.
Right. I'm from Phoenix, but I'm going to miss it for some reason.
Yeah.
So I want to bring this cactus with me because nothing says Phoenix, Arizona like a small potted cactus that I got from Trader Joe's.
You're really hell bent on this whole not a real cactus thing. You're hung up on it.
Oh, it's a real cactus,
but not really from the gorgeous Arizona desert.
It was such a choice for me, and I understand why. In the logistics of shooting a movie, it is much easier to have your actress hold the cactus already dug up and repotted into her little pot and take it with her. But I'm just like, boy, the choice of do we want to see that happen? No.
Do you think it's supposed to symbolize anything, the cactus?
Oh.
Because I don't know. I obviously haven't watched the rest of these scenes yet for the show. I don't know that we ever see that cactus again.
Oh, I would be surprised. Maybe
it's like on her desk or something in the bedroom.
Maybe in the second movie when they do the pan around her bay window, you see it like there for a moment.
We'll talk about that in about 18 months.
Yeah, next year we can bring that up.
If we're lucky, yeah.
If I had to, throw things back to the OG English class Twilight discussion days.
Sure, let's analyze this.
I have to say the cactus probably represents her personality. She's guarded.
Sure.
She's been safe her whole life in Phoenix, and now she's going to a new place, and she hasn't shed her prickly, spiny exterior yet.
Wow, that's incredible. I feel like so much of the symbolism in this movie wants us to see Kristen Stewart, Bella, as something delicate, something fragile, but you instead see her as a cactus.
I think she sees herself as a cactus.
Wow.
And it takes Edward to make her realize that even cacti bloom.
That is deep. That is incredible. This is why I asked you to be on the show. There is narration of Bella talking about how she does not regret the choice to leave home.
Right.
You, Will Nicholson, grew up in Arkansas, now live in Chicago. You've left home. Just like the cactus, you are a transplant.
It's true.
Do you regret the decision to leave home?
No, I don't. I don't. Arkansas, though it has its charms, it also has a lot of issues.
Sure.
Not that any place doesn't. No place is without its problems. For example, here in Chicago, winter sucks.
Yeah, that's true.
All in all, I love Chicago. It's a beautiful city, and I do feel that kinship with Bella. I left a very typically warm place, not quite as arid as Arizona, but I left a warm climate for a much colder climate, and one that is not necessarily as hospitable to my weather inclinations that I've grown up with.
Right.
But you adapt. I've learned to layer. I'm sure she learned to wear a raincoat.
I'm sure. She moves to Forks, Washington. Obviously, we're not there yet in the show. In the series of the show.
Lead right up to it.
Technically,
you really edged me with Forks.
Yeah.
I thought maybe we're gonna get some sweeping scenes of forest. No,
I cut you off. Right.
All I got was the Sierra Nevada.
You get some desert mountains. Forks, Washington, where her dad lives, but also a great place for a vampire to hide. Do you think a vampire could be hiding in Chicago? And where would a vampire do better to hide? Your hometown in Arkansas or Chicago?
Ooh, I think they do better to hide in Chicago.
Sure.
There's just, there's more inclement weather here. There's more people. So
easier to
blend in. And if you live downtown, they have all those underground tunnels and stuff. You really could hardly ever have to go above ground if you play your cards right as a vampire in Chicago.
That's a great way to think about it. And maybe when you do finally get bit by someone with a horrific mutation,
I'm just saying
that's sort of your play.
15 to 1600 years, when you only hear about a bunch of mysterious people going missing
Tourists
in Chicago.
Going missing, yeah.
Exactly. It's me. I'm a vampire. Look for me underground.
Well, hello to the jury that is currently listening to this and your trial where you've been accused of being a vampire, I guess?
In 1500 years, we circle back around to the Salem witch trials, but it's for vampires.
Something like that.
Little Rock is a wonderful city, but you have to go everywhere by car, and it's very sunny often because we're, in the South. A temperate zone, if you will. I don't know that a vampire would fare well. I guess the other thing, I will say, I will never be a vampire, and that is because I love garlic too much. That is my one downfall. If I do become a vampire, it'll be a brief run until I kill myself.
Is it ever established in Twilight, though, that these vampires can't eat garlic?
They can. I think that is one of the big things about this. Was it was one of the first major literary mainstream franchises where somebody was like, no, these aren't the vampires as you know them.
Yes.
These are our own vampires. Stephanie Meyer, she said, no, my vampires, they can go out in the sun.
But they'll sparkle. But they can. They won't die.
Can.
Right.
They can eat garlic. It tastes like ash to them in the same way that all human food does.
I guess we never see any of them confronted with a crucifix, so I don't know how that would work out as well. None of them ever get staked.
don't the Volturi hide in a church? That's like where their headquarters is.
We're getting way ahead of
yeah,
things.
I know. That's books and
movies away.
Movies away.
That's a question that at this rate we won't answer until, I don't know, 2026.
Hey, listener, if you've got a strong opinion about whether the Twilight vampires can be confronted with a crucifix or not, at me. Let's argue about it on Twitter.
Usually when people go on podcasts, they try not to start fights.
No, I'm trying to
social
right
media.
now. Come at me right now.
Okay.
I'll go to bat for these hot Twilight takes.
In this scene, Bella may or may not dig up a cactus. Whether or not she does,
Right.
apparently up for debate. If you could dig up something from your hometown and take it with you when you move, what would it be?
Boy, that's a great question.
Maybe something to eat, like Bella intends to eat that cactus. Maybe
my
something.
favorite snack. Yes, I dig up my family's cheese dip plant in our backyard. No, I think in real life I would never do this because it would be an insane thing to do. But a dogwood tree, just because there are lots of dogwoods in Arkansas and in Little Rock specifically, and we had one that grew right in front of my house that I grew up in, and it's. Dogwood trees, they're fairly small. They're like little trees. They're not very big. But so as a smaller child, it was the perfect like beginner climbing tree.
Sure.
So I used to climb up in it all the time until finally I got too big. My dad was like, you can't keep climbing at our dogwoods. You're going to break all the branches off and then we won't have a beautiful tree anymore. So I think a dogwood tree would be kind of like a nice little remind me of home plant.
Sure.
If I ever have kids and I don't get vampirized before then.
Or you do.
Or I do, and then I
Apparently
have
that doesn't
vampire
slow
kids.
you down. Yeah.
What about you? What would you bring up from Austin, Texas?
I'm from Houston, Texas.
From Houston,
Thank you
Texas.
very much.
Fuck. All right. Well, goodbye, everybody.
Yeah, boy, this is awkward. Probably a Whataburger franchise.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of those is what I would take.
Ooh, okay.
You can't quite literally dig that up and put it in a pot from Hobby Lobby, but something like that.
You know what?
Yeah.
I'll make a deal with you. If you bring Whataburger up from Houston, I'll bring Shipley's from Little Rock.
Fair.
And we can have Shipley's Donuts and Whataburger
That
together
sounds
in Chicago.
That sounds incredible to me. Will Nicholson, what would you say was your favorite part of this scene of the movie?
Absolutely, hands down, it is her in the car with the hipster indie music under it.
Yeah.
I love a cliche like we're starting the trip of our lives, and it's like the
When the phone bush turns white, that's when I'll come home. I'm going to see what I can show.
looking out the window while the banjo plays underneath. Nothing screams teen movie to me like that, like indie road trip soundtrack kicking in right at the top of the movie as the opening credits start. And I think they nail it in this. They said we need to let people know this is a teen movie, and they do it immediately within the first 2 minutes.
It's young adult. It's YA. It's what
It's
we're here
YA,
for.
and I love a cliche. I love a trope.
Sure.
Used well.
That's fair. What would you say was your least favorite part of this 58 seconds?
Hey Ben, take a wild guess.
Is it the deception
wild
regarding
guess.
the cactus?
It is the
It is the
bizarre
fact that you were
choice
lied to?
linger on her holding this potted cactus and clean spade for 3 seconds while she bites her lip.
I mean, look, you can't just expect her to dig up a cactus and put it in her bare hand. Of course, there's going to be a pot there for her to put it in.
Sure, I get that. I guess I don't know. The point of like digging up the cactus to me is like this is a labor of love. This is like I am taking a part of home with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then rather than show like that effort that the character's giving into like preserving this part of herself, instead they're like, nah, cactus equals Arizona.
That's
So,
it.
That's it. That's all they needed. They were like, all right, how do we show them that she's from the Southwest? Okay, well, we need a little bit of a sepia filter. All right, check, done. That's done. There's a strange yellow pallor over the whole scene. What else? Cactus. She needs to be holding a cactus.
All right.
I do have a question. Because,
Sure.
I mean, we're focusing a lot on this cactus. I don't want it to
more than I
undercut.
expected, honestly.
I didn't really expect it either. Did I know that this was going to be the thing that really got my goat this episode? No, but we focused on it pretty hard, and it's because it really jumped out to me.
Yeah.
Although closely and immediately followed up by her talking about how much she's going to miss her mom.
Yeah.
And then one of the like most uncomfortable mother-daughter hugs I think I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah.
And you've seen a lot of mother-daughter hugs? Or?
Listen, I guess not. But
Yeah.
she's like, oh, I really love my mom and I'm going to miss her so much. And they show like her mom giving her like a little side hug and she's like shying away from it. I'm
Right.
like, all right. I mean, I guess that is teen. That's accurate to teen, but it just feels like it's so juxtaposed to what
Yeah.
her narration is saying.
And I think it's a little interesting that it gives us these characters of the mom and the mom's boyfriend, and then we basically never see them again.
I mean, fair to the book, too.
Sure.
But although I did have this question.
Yeah.
Because in the movie, in the narration that she gives, she says, you know, they want to hit the road, so that's why I'm going to stay with my dad.
Right.
In the books, isn't it just that her mom's boyfriend got a job? He's like a baseball coach, right? Or a baseball
He's
player.
a baseball player.
Baseball player. And
This comes up later in the movie. And
right. And he gets put on a team in Florida.
Jacksonville.
In Jacksonville,
Yes.
Florida, right. And so in the books, I think it's just that they're like, we're moving to Jacksonville for his work. And she goes, Jacksonville? No, thank you. I'd rather go to Forks. And in the movie, they're like, that's too harsh. Nobody's
Yeah.
going to believe that someone from Phoenix has that strong an opinion about Jacksonville.
I mean, you ever been to Jacksonville? I've never heard any good things about it.
You know what?
Given the choice, would you rather move to Forks, Washington, a place that I have been to, or Jacksonville, Florida, a place I have never been to and can tell you nothing about?
Okay, well, I've been to Jacksonville, so give me like...
So between the two of us, let's figure this
yeah,
out.
give me like your quick impression of Forks when you
Great.
went.
Forks, well, we went there specifically for Twilight
Right,
purposes,
I'm
obviously.
sure.
My now fiance, we went to Seattle for her birthday one year, and one day rented a car, drove out to Forks. We did all of Forks in maybe an hour. There's not a lot to it.
Sure.
There's one little strip that is small businesses and Twilight, you know,
Yeah.
touristy things.
Do they have
to
the
do.
diner?
Well, see, here's the thing. It's less impressive than you would expect because a lot of the scenes of the movie set in Forks were actually filmed in Oregon. So
Wow.
like Forks High School does not look like Forks High School in the movie. So it's actually quite disappointing.
That's so funny.
You can see the Welcome to Forks sign,
Yeah.
and that's really about it. We went. There was one thing they did though. The Forks High School sign, home of the Spartans or whatever, that actually is outside the actual Forks High School, and they took that there to the school in Oregon for filming. When we went, we were going to get a picture by that sign, but unfortunately, it had been replaced with a sign that said like "Congratulations, seniors," because it was around graduation time. And just like, why would you take away your tourist attraction from the high school there? Don't you want strangers coming and
Yeah.
taking pictures?
I
So
feel-
that's Forks.
Okay, got it. Well,
Tell me about Jacksonville.
that was such a great sell, and yet I think it still beats Jacksonville.
Here's the best thing I can tell you about Forks. The biggest compliment I can give it. The drive from Seattle to Forks is beautiful.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Sure, I believe that. I will say that the Jacksonville has some nice views if you like long sweeping ocean vistas.
Sure.
The highlight of my time in Jacksonville
Yeah.
was that it was our launching point to go to Disney. In
Okay.
Orlando. The best thing about Jacksonville is how close it is to Orlando without being Orlando.
Got it.
So between the two, I think I'd prefer to move to Forks, if only because Jacksonville's in Florida, and
Yeah.
that whole state is quite a mess.
I think of the two, I would prefer Jacksonville just because
Really?
Jacksonville is a large city and there's stuff there.
You know what? That's fair.
They're big
But-
enough for a football team.
But how long was the drive into Seattle from Forks?
It was a couple hours.
Couple hours?
We,
Okay,
we took
never
the
mind,
ferry.
yeah.
It was a whole thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Was there like a faster route than the ferry?
No, not really.
Oh, okay. That wasn't like the scenic route. You
It
just...
was a very scenic route.
Oh.
It was beautiful, but I don't know if I could live there. I'm a big city boy at heart.
See, and that's where within me there are two wolves.
Sure.
Or a vampire and a wolf.
Okay.
And part of me is like, yeah, I do need a big city. I need the modern comforts. But another part of me really loves like camping and that kind of like rustic out in the middle of nowhere stuff. And I think as long as I could get a good enough internet connection, I'd be into living out in the middle of the woods in Forks.
I'm sure
Washington.
you could do that. And while you're in Forks, be sure to stop in at the Twilight Forever Museum.
Oh, absolutely. I
Yeah.
wouldn't miss it for the world.
You would love it. There's a lot of costumes from the movies, and it's staffed by volunteer cosplayers. It's a good time.
Oh, that's great.
It was an experience.
I mean, can I blame Forks, Washington? Absolutely not. You have to capitalize on that.
Yeah. As we say down south, you gotta dance with the girl what brung you.
Exactly.
This is the hand life has dealt you, and hey, anything you can do to bring a little business to your part of the world, go for it. I say.
So yeah, in the movie they just changed it. They don't mention that he's moving to Florida for baseball. They're just like, oh, they're hitting the road,
Yeah.
which is cool. But I don't know how I would feel if I was in high school and my mom was like, hey, I know you have a lot of friends that you've been building up over years and years and that this is your home, but my new boyfriend and I are going to hit the road, so you got to get out of here.
We're moving, and you can't really come with us, so...
Yeah. Get out.
Yeah, go live with your dad, who you have not seen in a very long time.
Why'd I leave him? He was really curmudgeonly, but I'm sure you'll love him. You're going to get along great, sweetie.
Was there any other thoughts you had about this scene?
I mentioned it before, but I do think it is funny that just because I've seen the movie and I know what's coming, I know the color theory that they have in play for this movie of the cool, cold steel tones of Forks, Washington.
Yeah.
And the way that they have to match that kind of color balancing, yet still be in Phoenix, Arizona, gives the whole scene this weird, surreal, oversaturated, but also somehow undersaturated.
Right. It wants to hit you hard with the contrast of this movie's going to take place in a place with no sunlight. Here is too much sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's an overbearing amount of sun.
Yeah. Is this shot overexposed? Maybe. We don't care.
Intentionally.
Intentionally.
It's an artistic choice.
It is. It is.
Yeah, that's called cinematography.
But I think my favorite part is how much they were like, but we got to make sure Kristen Stewart looks like the same person.
Yeah.
Like location to location.
Right.
So we have to balance all of the color correction we're doing for the scene around making her look the same-ish.
It still has to be blue,
yeah.
but hot blue instead of cold, wet blue.
Okay. I need you to give me scorching Arizona sun.
Yeah.
Just hot, sun-baked desert
Sure.
and Arizona, Phoenix.
Sure, boss.
red
So
earth.
red and orange?
No. Our whole color theory for the movie is cool blue tones.
Oh, like water that they don't have in deserts?
Exactly. As much as you could make it look like it's raining in a place where they see maybe 2 to 3 inches of that per year.
Do you think it would have been a bigger punch, a harder contrast, if it had been more red to blue?
Twilight comes out at a time when all movies were doing this. Twilight is not the only offender here.
Yeah.
There was a point of time right as this movie was coming out where every movie was we're not very desaturated. We're cool. We're blues and every once in a while a desaturated orange or yellow. But it's all going to be cool blues and really light, bright exposures and things like that. And so I think that, they were trying to fit with the times. Would I have loved to see a very bright and campy and oversaturated version of Twilight?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that'd be so fun to see just what happens if they go, hey, instead of being this really angsty, edgy teen movie, let's just be real campy, fun vampire teen movie.
Sure.
I don't know that it'd be better.
Probably, it certainly wouldn't be the same.
It wouldn't be the same at all. And, to its credit, Twilight, the book, is very that angsty teen, edgy, it is appropriate. What the movie does is appropriate to the tone of the book.
Sure.
But it is a little, part of me is oh man, where's that smash cut from the bright orange of the Arizona to the cold high school of Forks with the 90s record scratching DJ music. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know
that,
what you
that
mean.
kind of vibe. I'm
Right.
boy, what in a world where Twilight looked like that, I wonder how people would have felt about it. I wonder how it would have been received.
I don't know. I don't think it would have had the impact
You don't think so?
that it would have. No, because it would have looked like so much that came before it, and that that they
That's
were
true.
really going for the angsty teen demographic.
Yeah.
And you're not going to do that with sort of American Pie colors and shooting.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I will say, as soon as the narration stops and they hit again that indie teen movie, I'm in the car, the plane's taking off. I'm okay, I'm on board again.
That's where
you've picked me up.
That's where the plane and the movie take
Take off.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm in this weird place. I feel like sounds like I'm shitting on Twilight. I want to make very clear that I'm not. I enjoy it for what it is. I think it really captured a time and place. This early 2000s teen angst is just like in a bottle. It is right there. And I think it is camp in a lot of the best ways, and this kind of like not overtly camp, but in this very like understated of like, yeah, we're taking this very seriously because it's fun and we want to and we like it, and so we're going to treat it with all of this like respect and care and love, and that's great. That's what it deserves, because that's what the series elicits from people.
This is interesting. There's no way you would have known this, but in the previous episode recorded, the word camp came up a lot. So I'm interested to see if that is going to be a continuing theme with my guests, if they see Twilight as a work of camp. I mean, I think whether that was intended then so much as it is now sort of, after the fact, retroactive camp, you might say.
Yeah. I think that you're going to kind of have people in these three camps.
The camp camps.
The camp camps.
Yeah.
You're going to have people that, were fans of the series when it came out and were diehard fans and just love it enthusiastically, unironically, wholeheartedly ever since then, the whole time, that have always been fans of it, that are happy to see it get its renaissance.
Sure.
I think there are going to be people that are probably more like me, that were like a little bit more bandwagony, that were like fans of it when it was popular, and then as it grew out of fashion, became a little bit more passé, was like, I haven't seen past the second movie, just because that was about the age where I aged out of it by around the time Eclipse was coming out. And New Moon to me is, I think, one of my favorite and least favorite in the series, because I think it is a bad movie.
Yeah. Of the two movies you've seen.
Of the two movies.
It's one of your favorite and
It is
least
my favorite because I think it is objectively a bad movie, and I do love it because of that, because of the camp.
Sure.
That said, I think Twilight, the first movie, does not quite hit that level of it. But I think that I fell out of it just because, I was like, I'm an older teen boy. I'm not the target demographic here.
Right.
I had a little sister. She was the target demographic. And so I was like, I can't be into anything my little sister's into.
Sure.
And now, I've gotten old enough that I'm like, I don't care about what's cool or anything. I liked Twilight when it was out. I haven't seen the other ones, but it's fun, to watch them and stuff like that. So I think that's going to be the second group of people, which might be by and large the larger camp, which is going to be, these movies were really cheesy and corny, but I really loved them when I came out, and you know what? They really deliver on what the source material is, and they scratch that itch. When you're looking for this kind of melodramatic teen romance, with some fantasy elements to it, Twilight knocks it out of the park.
Sure.
And then I think the third group of people is going to be people that were unattached to it in its heyday at all, and now have seen it come back in this renaissance, and can approach it from this let people enjoy what they like. If people really like this, I'm gonna watch it with an open mind and have fun with it. And I think that's really where it shines, is once you take away this need for it to be, this massively successful franchise that this movie is carrying the weight of. Once it's just hey, watch this movie. Did you enjoy that hour, 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours? Yeah, great. And I think that's what Twilight delivers,
You say you aged out of Twilight. Do you think you have, or perhaps ever will, age back into it?
Yes, I think I have. I think that is what I couldn't have told you when it happened.
Sure.
Probably just because, it fell out of my mind. It wasn't in the zeitgeist for a long time, really.
It kind of disappeared for a while.
It did. And I've, not fully forgot about it. There are always the memes,
Right.
But there are things from your childhood that you have this judgment of when you're in it, because you're becoming a person and you're trying to decide what you like and you don't like, and other people are judging you for it, and you're like, oh fuck, my peers don't like this thing, I can't like it either, and things like that. And I think, as you get older, you reach an age where you kind of don't give a fuck about that anymore, and you also I think at 20, I might have been no, I don't like Twilight. That's not good cinema. And now I'm I don't care if it's good cinema. Is it will I enjoy my popcorn while I'm watching it? Yeah, great, good movie. And
That's it.
I think that so I have come back around into
Sure.
enjoying Twilight. I think just because I've lost a lot of that self-judgment that I might have had
Yeah.
about it before, you know?
If you had to give this scene a name, say it's 2008, you pop in the DVD, the chapter title, what would you name this 58 seconds of movie? And this will also be the name of the episode, so make it good.
Oh boy. Wow, you've put me on the spot here.
That's fine. You can take time to
my
think.
first instinct is Phoenix Rising because we see the airplane rising into the air as she leaves Phoenix. But I feel like I'd be remiss if I don't include the cactus in this title somehow.
So we got Phoenix Rising, : we can give it a subtitle.
Phoenix Rising, : a stuck cactus never blooms.
A stuck cactus never blooms. It takes about as long to type that out on my phone as it does to watch the entire scene. That's a lot of words for 58 seconds. Will Nicholson, thank you so much for coming on to Bite Sized. Is there anything you would like to promote? Anything perhaps where people can follow you or maybe see you live?
I do 2 music improv shows here in Chicago at
Sure.
Riff Improv.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, you might have heard of it. I'm also a part of a show called Lost Realms.
Okay.
That's at Otherworld Theaters. Riff Improv's at IO. Lost Realms is Fridays at 10 p.m. at Otherworld, and Riff is Saturdays at 10 p.m. at IO Theater. And I'm on a social media.
Yeah,
Give me
tell
a
us
follow
about
on
that.
Instagram, Twitter, whatever you want to. Come argue with me on Twitter. I've got time. Let's do it. You want to get in a fight about Twilight? Tell me I'm wrong about this cactus.
Okay.
At Sire William N on both of those things.
Sire William N. That is it. Thank you for listening to yet another episode of the Bite Sized Podcast. Thank you to my guest, Will Nicholson, my producer and editor, Ben Oxher. Thank you to the band Swimwear Department for the use of their song Mauled to Death for our opening and closing theme. Give them a follow wherever you find music. If you like the show, why not follow us on social media? We are on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, TIT, at Bite-Sized Pod, BITESIZEDPOD _ at Bite-Sized Pod _ on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Give us a follow, share the episode with someone you know who likes Twilight or doesn't like Twilight. See if I care. Share us, favorite us, 5-star reviews. You know how podcasts work. It's the year 2023. They've been around for a while. If you want to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, you can do so at benabear.com. That's at BENHEBERTDOTCOM. Slow that down if you want to understand how to spell my difficult last name. With all that out of the way, it's time to say goodnight. Will, we're going to close this like we always do. As we always say on Bite Sized,
Give me a bite of that cactus.
give me a bite of that cactus. Good night.
Let